Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Unacademy, the one-stop destination for the civil services English medium aspirants. Welcome back to UCAN, Unacademy's Current Affairs Navigator program. We intend to cover current affairs that are based on social issues or social justice that have been doing the rounds from the date around 25th of November till 10th of December. Yes, if I'm clearly audible and visible to you all, please let me know in the comment section. I'm sorry for the delay. There was a little bit of a glitch in terms of mirroring one of the devices. Am I clearly audible and visible to everyone? I'll just wait for 10 seconds to look at the comment section. Give me a quick thumbs up in the comment section and we shall resume. All right, wonderful. All looks good. Wonderful. Let's begin. Yes. So, the topics that we are going to be covering today are really interesting as well as diverse topics. The first becomes the MGNREGA program, and this becomes interesting in the context of right to livelihood that we also must particularly do when it comes to GS2, issues relating to poverty, issues relating to unemployment, so on and so forth. The second topic will be about the UGC's new guidelines when it comes to flexible duration degrees that will be permissible in the higher education institutes. The next is going to be about certain data that has come to light about the disproportionate contraceptive burden when it comes to men as well as women, when it comes to, in a way, ensuring that there is any kind of population control measures that are taken. The next is right to die with dignity. This is obviously in the context of also one of the euthanasia related laws that were passed in the House of Commons in UK. So because of that, the same kind of topic or the same theme also becomes important in our examination. A lot of mains enrichment topics. I will come to this section and then explain what is mains enrichment and how to go about when it comes to these particular topics. How much has to be done and where you have to limit yourself will also be understood when we come to mains enrichment. All right. So with this, let's begin with the first topic. Now, let's have a good start when it comes to a question. So let's start with an MCQ. I'd want you to do an MCQ related to the topic that we will be beginning, because a lot of clarity will come once you solve this MCQ in order to understand the problems associated with the MGNREGA scheme. All right, I'll read the statements along with you. Now, consider the following statements. The MGNREGA scheme provides for 100 days of guaranteed wage employment to an adult member of a rural household who volunteers to do unskilled work. That is statement number 1. Statement number 2. Under the MGNREGA scheme, the wages are revised according to the CPI Rural Index. Statement number 3. Central government provides for 60% of the funding of the expenditure that is incurred in the wages, and 40% of that expenditure for wages is provided by the states. So this is a question right in front of you. I would need you to attempt this question. At least give me the answer in the comment section. I'm looking at the comment section for 10-15 seconds and then we shall resume. Yes? Looking at the comment section now. Please try to attempt this question. I'm seeing very diverse answers in the comment section. All right. Happy that a few of you have attempted the question. Let's discuss this now. So the first statement says that the idea or the agenda or the objective behind introducing the MGNREGA scheme is that it is a demand-driven scheme. What do you understand by a demand-driven scheme? A demand-driven scheme simply means that if there will be a demand for providing employment, for demanding employment, that amount of employment will have to be generated and given. There is no upper cap that only 10 crore people will be eligible for it, only 5 crore people will be eligible for it. Yes, some rural households are not eligible for it. This kind of cap does not exist. It is a demand driven scheme. So any individual belonging to any rural household, as long as he is or she is volunteering to do unskilled work, not skilled work. Skilled work cannot be demanded. For example, IT related jobs, etc. They cannot be demanded. But anyone who is willing to do unskilled work for a wage per se, or a wage related payment per se, has to be given the right to work. Yes, this has also been made a legal provision under the MGNREGA Act. So in other words, we say that in India, right to work because of MGNREGA is almost a legal right. Yes or no? It is a legal right. When does one right become legal? When it can be enforced. For instance, if this is not been provided for, the minimum 100 days of wage employment for an unskilled labor is not provided for, that person will be given in that case an unemployment allowance. Yes. So if this is not provided for, there is another feature that exists in the form of an unemployment allowance. And when are you eligible to get an unemployment allowance? If work has been demanded on the first day and 15 days have surpassed in which your work has not been allotted. So if 15 days have surpassed from the time that you first demanded work, then you are allowed to get an unemployment allowance. So this becomes a 15 days period. Yes, that is why we say that in a way in India, because of MGNREGA being also an act, we have a right to work, a right to livelihood. Is this understood? And it is a demand driven scheme. The amount which will be demanded, that much has to be provided by the government. There cannot be a cap per se. Yes. So for example, 100 days of guaranteed wage employment to who? To an adult member, that means above the age of 18, who's belonging to a rural household. That means MGNREGA is not applicable in urban areas. It is just a rural employment program. Someone who is volunteering to do not skilled work but unskilled work. The first statement is absolutely correct and there is nothing incorrect about this. Let's come to statement 2. Now, the wages have to be revised periodically. Yes, so that the wages are in sync with the inflation figures of that time. Yes. So that people's purchasing power is according to what is happening in the markets. If products, if food, if basic services are also getting more expensive, the wages should also be increased with that corresponding increase. Yes or no? So on which parameter are the wages increasing? Yes, that becomes important. On the basis of which index are the wages increasing in MGNREGA? So this is something that you must know, and therefore you must know that this is a wrong statement. Why? Because the wages are revised not according to the consumer price index rural, rather according to the consumer price index relating to the agricultural laborers. Yes. So this is an absolutely important point that you must know when it comes to MGNREGA. Yes. Look at this third statement now. Now the third statement is very, very important, because for a scheme as important as MGNREGA, right? For a scheme as prominent, as evergreen as MGNREGA, you must always know what is the funding pattern. Yes. That means how is the expenditure divided between the center and the states? Yes. For all other schemes which are not that important, it's not necessary to know the minute details. But when it comes to a scheme as important as MGNREGA, it's very important to even know the minute details when it comes to the funding pattern. It also becomes very important to know is because issues relating to funding are often reflected in news articles. Have you not read a few editorials and articles talking about the issue in the transfer of funding from center to some of the states, specifically West Bengal, when it comes to the wage related component that the center is responsible for? Yes, and this kind of a stoppage of the center's funding for wage related component affects a lot of MGNREGA works. For example, a lot of MGNREGA works have been stalled in the state of West Bengal owing to this problem when it comes to the funding pattern. So because it has been in the current affairs, because it is an important scheme, we must know the minute details, right? So let's look at statement number 3. Central government provides for 60% of the funding of the expenditure incurred in wages. No, that is incorrect. Now let's understand the funding pattern in a little more detail, okay? So here is the funding pattern for the MGNREGA scheme. It has two components to it. Yes, it has two components to it. One is a wages related component. That means the expenditure that will be incurred to give wages to the people who are particularly taking up jobs under the MGNREGA scheme. And one is the material cost related component. What do you mean by the material cost? For example, any community related asset is to be created in the MGNREGA works, right? Any flood banks have to be created, any new irrigation project has to be created, any community hall has to be created. Yes, so there will be material cost attached to those assets that need to be created. So there are two components when it comes to the funding or the expenditure. And here we have the center and here we have the states. Let's see how they are divided among the two. So the wages related component, all the amount that will be given in terms of wages will be 100% provided by the center. That means the wage related component, the contribution by states is 0%. It is nil. The whole component, 100% of wage related payments will have to be given by the center. Now do you see why there is a friction? If center delays these payments, if center delays these devolution to the states are unable to then further pay the wages to the MGNREGA workers. Yes, the material cost when incurred for assets will be in the form of 75% to be borne by the center and only 25% to be borne by the states. Is this understood? That is the funding pattern, and this much I need you to know. Now let's understand. So this third statement becomes absolutely incorrect. Please focus on the directive given in the question. What is the question asking? It is asking for the incorrect statement, which is why 2 and 3 become incorrect. And which is the option that has 2 and 3? It is C with 2 and 3 that becomes our answer. Yes, is this understood? All right. Wonderful. Now let's come to the main agenda, and there were editorials about the MGNREGA schemes or problems and issues and challenges associated with its implementations. What are the problem areas? This is something that we must discuss. Yes. So what have we understood till now? What we have understood till now is that MGNREGA becomes important for us. Why? Because in GS2 syllabus, there is a direct topic which is written development processes. Yes, that means how do you ensure that development happens? How do you ensure poverty is reduced? And how do you give the benefits of development? Are there DBT payments? Are they ensuring livelihood as an option? Is it by ensuring right to life, right to work as an option? Yes. So development processes become an important part. And how do you execute these schemes for development also becomes a part of this particular topic. Another topic which directly translates to this is poverty, given in GS paper 2 as well under social justice. Yes, and therefore what do you do in order to secure the right to livelihood for people? This is what the relevance is for the exam. Yes, so MGNREGA in a way is a legal right to work that is secured in India. Yes, clear about this? legal right to work. What is the feature of it? The features are simple. 100 days of employment or wage related employment that will be given for anyone demanding or volunteering for unskilled labor. Yes, this is available to any adult, one adult in a rural household. Yes, so that is basically the features relating to it. The demand driven scheme and the funding patterns we have already done. Now let's understand the advantages. The advantages, or what it does is, it ensures livelihood for individuals. They get a right to work. It also ensures right-based approach. What do you mean by a rights-based approach? A rights-based approach simply means that when you are simply giving cash transfers to people, when you are simply giving subsidies to people, what is that? That is a welfarist approach. That is a paternalistic attitude. Yes, that is an approach or the funding that is given for consumption. Rights-based approach is that we are not just mere beneficiaries of subsidies. We are not just mere beneficiaries of your cash transfers or DBT payments. In fact, we have a right to demand work and therefore earn our wage-related payments. So it attaches a lot of dignity to labor. Yes. So it attaches a lot of dignity to labor. Yes. That means, in other words, that the state is not doing you a favor. The state is not doing you a favor by just sending 6,000 rupees when it comes to 1 year. Yes. The state is providing you with an opportunity. So opportunity to work and therefore claim your own wages. Yes, it is also important because it prevents the distress migration. Have you heard about the term distress migration? A lot of migration that happens because of unavailability of opportunities in rural areas to urban areas. Yes. So migrants generally go to urban areas in search of jobs because of the lack of employment provided in underdeveloped rural areas. Yes. So another important aspect also becomes that it prevents or it halts distress migration. Yes. And therefore it ensures that a lot of unsustainable urban rise is not happening or urban increase is not happening, which can also translate into very poor standard of living such as the slums, etc. Yes, so it prevents distress migration from rural areas to urban areas. Very, very important. It also ensures that capital assets or any kind of assets are created in the villages itself. Yes, a lot of programs that have to be taken up as works under MGNREGA can be given the go-ahead by the Panchayati Raj institutes. In fact, the Gram Sabha plays a very important role in a way verifying the kind of works that can be taken. Yes, so the infrastructure that is created that can be for the local needs per se. Yes, for example, if one area or one region is extremely prone to flooding every year in the monsoons, then before flooding, the MGNREGA works can be used in order to creating those flood banks, those artificial flood banks, yes, or embankments per se. Therefore, to reduce the problem related to one local region. Yes, if there are no water reservoirs for storing or harvesting rainwater, those can be dug up and created with the works of MGNREGA workers. Yes, so infrastructural development or asset creation also happens when it comes to the rural areas. So indirectly, rural areas are also benefiting with any amount of development. And this asset creation is absolutely on the basis of local needs. Yes, as a product of public participation. Because a lot of verification is to be done by the Panchayati Raj institutions. They have to decide the work that has to be allotted. Yes, another example being, this scheme proved to be of immense importance in times like COVID in times like the pandemic, in times like the unforeseen situations. Yes, so during the pandemic, where a lot of urban migrants went back to their villages, went back to their rural areas. In fact, MGNREGA used or worked as an opportunity to give them some form of employment even in those stressing times, even in those times where there was no job security, even in those times where livelihood options were severely impacted. Yes, because of the lockdown, so on and so forth. Yes, so this becomes very important in unforeseen circumstances as well. For example, the times when it comes to the COVID pandemic. Yes, this is something that we can write as an example. So this becomes important, and of course related to a subject topic. It is very, very important. It is a very important way to counter or reduce poverty in the country. Yes, ensuring that people are given a basic standard of living. Yes, so those are the advantages when it comes to the MGNREGA program. Now let's understand the issues when it comes to this. So this was in the news. This was in the news, and this was the editorial that I picked up. The right to work deleted. Is it? So this particular editorial is talking about a lot of issues when it comes to the implementation, yes, of this scheme, severely limiting the opportunity for work for individuals. So let's not stick to the editorial. In fact, go a little beyond the editorial to understand what are the general issues and challenges associated with the implementation of the MGNREGA scheme, right? So let's understand now the issues or the challenges when it comes to the implementation. Clear about this? Now, okay, so in this, the first challenge becomes that the number of days that you're providing employment for is sometimes inadequate. For example, in a house with 5 individuals, if only one individual is getting employment, that too for only 100 days, that sometimes might not be sufficient in order to enhance the standard of living for the household. Yes, and because of inflation, that kind of wage payment just for about 100 days, that too only for one person in a household, is insufficient. So the first problem, and this was also recommended by the Standing Committee on Panchayati Raj and Rural Development, that they said that the number of days promised, okay, is insufficient, and the state should be given a chance or liberty. So the state should be given a chance to extend this, to increase this maybe by 50 days in specifically situations such as the unforeseen events such as COVID, in specifically situations such as natural calamities. Yes, so for example, if there is an area where there is a huge amount of crop loss relating to pests, relating to climatic conditions, etc. In those areas, they will in a way encounter a huge amount of agrarian distress. Yes, so in these regions, the work that is promised can be enhanced. The number of days can be enhanced, and that is insufficient at that time. So that is the first issue when it comes to the MGNREGA program. Yes. So depending on situations, depending on the type of stress that a district is facing or local conditions are facing, we can increase or decrease these number of days. Yes. The second problem associated with the MGNREGA program is the quality of assets that are created or the type of assets that are created. Yes. So when it comes to asset creation, there are two problems. One is associated with the type, that means the type of works that are chosen. The second problem is relating to quality, that is the material that is used is of substantial quality or not, or is there siphoning of funds? Is there any divergence of fund when it comes to materials? Are you not using proper quality material in order to make these assets? Yes, so this becomes an issue when it comes to asset creation. The first being of types, that means this in which a lot of public participation is not taken. Yes, that means even though the MGNREGA program has rules about the assets to be verified or prioritized, they have to be prioritized by the local Panchayati Raj institutions where Gram Sabha plays an important role. But this particular provision and feature generally remains on paper. These Gram Sabha meetings do not happen on a regular basis. These Panchayati Raj meetings do not have on a regular basis. In fact, the frequency of these meetings have severely reduced. What happens in that case? What happens in that case is that prioritizing or selection of the works for asset creation becomes almost a bureaucratic exercise. Bureaucratic exercise. That means the government is exercising their right when it comes to what has to be made and what not, which means that sometimes it is not according to what the specific local needs are. It is completely detached from what the region particularly needs. Yes, and this goes against what the intention of the act was. When it comes to quality, what is the problem? The material quality that is used is often of a questionable character, and therefore this also raises issues when it comes to corruption. That means the usage of materials of a substandard nature. Yes, low quality materials that are used. What happens because of that? Even if you made some asset, that asset is only going to remain for 3 years, 4 years, requiring repairs again and again, right? So the quality of asset is also majorly questionable. The next aspect or issue when it comes to this is wage related aspects. Yes, what does this mean? That wages are not reflecting the increase in inflation. What does this mean? Basically, this means that when you are revising wages for MGNREGA according to the CPI agricultural laborer, that is very restricted as a category and sometimes lower than the CPI rural index. Yes. So therefore, one of the suggestions by the standing committee, the parliamentary standing committee, was that we must revise the index that we used in order to give wages, and the revised index that should be used is CPI rural as compared to CPI agricultural laborer, because this is more reflective of the cost or the inflation that is prevalent in the rural regions, in the rural locality. So these wages are not reflecting an increase in inflation, and therefore the revision criteria must also be thought about. This becomes another issue. Now another issue becomes the issue relating to wage payment. What do you mean by wage payment? That the wages are often delayed. So there is a huge delay when it comes to wage payment. We had seen the problem. This is also because of the federal issues that come up, where the center often delays the devolution of their part of the scheme. Yes, their expenditure related component, and therefore the wages are delayed even by the state. Yes, so this is also because of a center state issue, because the responsibility is by the center. 100% of wage related expenditure has to be sent by the center, and delays in these devolution leads to further delay in wage payments. Yes, so this becomes very important. Even when wages are not provided, okay, even when wages are not provided, not just delay, but there are issues when it comes to Aadhaar based payments. And this is what the editorial is talking about. Have you heard about a lot of case studies even in ethics, that a DBT payment or a wage related payment or any entitlement benefit was denied only because of the problem of Aadhaar based payments? Yes. So this is what the editorial is talking about. The editorial is particularly saying that what we have witnessed in the last 4 odd years is high amount of deletion. A lot of job cards that were issued earlier have now been deleted in the last 4 years. In fact, the author is saying in the last 4 odd years, almost 10 crore job cards have been deleted. That is a huge, huge number, which is why the title that says that right to work is deleted. Yes, why is this the case? Now, there are certain criteria on which you can delete a job card. The criteria such as fabrication, that means a false document. Yes, that means you've provided a false document. Yes. The second is duplicate. That means there are two individuals from a household that are applying for the MGNREGA work. It can be only given to one. Yes. Another aspect is that you have completely migrated to another region. So therefore, you're not eligible for the job card here. And another way is that the area that you are living in, that has become a town or an urban area. It is no more rural. And MGNREGA is only applicable in rural areas. So these are broadly the criteria on which the job cards can be deleted. Now what the author is saying is that few objectionable criteria are being used or presented in reports in terms of deletion. What are the job cards deleted on? They said 70% of the times of these 10 crore job cards that were deleted, 70% of the time, the reason that was specified was non-willingness to work. Non-willingness to work. Non-willing to work. Yes. Now, please, this is what the author is saying, that in a state like rural India, where there is huge amount of unemployment that exists, yes, do you think 70% of the intended beneficiaries will not be willing to work in a case like that? That is a huge questionable mismatch when it comes to the realities of rural India. Yes, so 70% of the time this reason was given as an excuse for deleting the job cards. Yes, this is very questionable because the author also says that the maximum surge in deletion, maximum increase in deletion happened around the year 2022. That is when the government had made it mandatory and in fact put the obligations on the authority, the administration, that you must give the benefits or the wages according to Aadhaar based payments. That means all the job cards should be seeded with Aadhaar cards and then only the payment should be given, and it is your responsibility, the administration's responsibility to do so. Now what the author is saying, and this is an important analysis, what the author is saying, if there were earlier 200 beneficiaries, this is a simple example, if there were earlier 200 beneficiaries which had a job card, out of which the administration said that we have been able to seed the Aadhaar based payments for 50 odd beneficiaries. Yes, the rest are remaining. Now the pressure on the administration increases, and what they do is that in order to give better result, they start reducing the denominator. That means the figure still remains 50, but they delete 100 job cards and they say only out of 100 job cards we have done 50. That means we have achieved half the target here. Earlier they were saying we have only achieved 1/4 of the targets. So the author is accusing that because of this imperative that is created, because of this mandatory provision or obligation that is created on the administration is becoming a lot reckless and they are using certain arbitrary criterias in order to delete job cards. And this is not fair. This is in fact a denial of the right to work. Yes, so that is very important to note. This kind of a trend has been witnessed in the statistics that are provided by the author. Yes, so this becomes important. So any Aadhaar based payment sometimes is also a problem when it comes to the giving of wages. Now because this has become an important criteria, this has become mandatory, but a similar amount of financial inclusion has not happened in the rural areas. That means people are not in the fold of banking activities. A proper bank account might not exist. So just on the basis of that, you cannot be denying wage related payments. So this is again another problem that the article highlights. Another important problem that the article highlights is relating to major corruption, is relating to the possibilities of corruption leading to certain inclusion or exclusion errors. That means people who should not have been included are included, while people who should have been included are not included. Yes, so inclusion and exclusion errors are a big problem, as well as fake job cards. Fake job cards, etc. are also a problem. Yes, so there is issues when it comes to the attendance. It is issues when it comes to the verification of these candidates. Yes, this becomes a problem, and because of this, a lot of funds can be siphoned off. A lot of funds can be diverted in this context. Yes. Another important issue is that the clause or the feature that says that social audit must be done regularly in every 6 months, that only remains on paper. Or maybe the Panchayati Raj institutions or the Gram Sabha is not even made aware of the fact that these are your rights, these are your legal obligations, and you can prioritize the works. You can have a check on the work. You can verify the quality of the works. Yes, so lack of capacity building. Lack of capacity building of what? Of the members of the Panchayati Raj institutions, the members of the Gram Sabha, makes this provision only on paper. That means they are not exercising their due rights that they should have. This leads to lack of awareness. This leads to lack of accountability when it comes to the work done. Yes, and therefore this leads to an issue or a problem of corruption. Yes, this also leads to the lack of implementation of the scheme in terms of local needs in order to fulfill the local asset creation needs. Yes, so that is a problem. That means the capacity building of the Panchayati Raj institutions and members or the Gram Sabha, this should be done on a regular basis. Yes, so these are the issues when it comes to the problems associated with MGNREGA. Yes. So now what do you write when it comes to livelihood as an option? Yes. And I need you to see this question, attempt this question, where you will talk about what else can you do in order to generate livelihood. Because MGNREGA can only be one component, one strategy, one option to reduce poverty. It cannot be the only scheme to reduce poverty. Yes. So securing the right, look at this question now. Securing the right to livelihood is an imperative to alleviate poverty. That means if you have to reduce poverty, the right to livelihood, providing or creating a life to livelihood is very important. It cannot be done without that. Yes. Discuss the issues associated with the effective implementation of the MGNREGA scheme and discuss how opportunities of livelihood can be created in general. So in this, first you talk about the issue when it comes to livelihood, the issues when it comes to unemployment. Yes, the issues when it comes to jobless growth that we witness in India. Yes, the issues when it comes to inequality when we witness in India. The issues when it comes to disguised employment when it comes to India. These leading to problems such as poverty. And these need to be revised. The first option or the first statement is addressing this. Then you talk about the issues when it comes to MGNREGA. Yes, that is easy for you to do because we've just discussed this. After that, you talk about the other livelihood opportunities, the other livelihood options. What are the other livelihood options? The other livelihood options can also mean entrepreneurship development. That means credit can be given by the government, easy amount of credit, easy uptake of credit, such as interventions like interest subvention. That means easier loans. Why? In order to start your own enterprises. That means You are pushing for entrepreneurship related development in India. Another important aspect can be that even if you are ensuring that people are moving out of agriculture, you can start agripreneurship. Yes, that means businesses in and around associated with agriculture. That means examples such as cold storages, examples such as food processing, yes, so on and so forth. We can here also talk about the extension of the MGNREGA program to the urban areas. That can also be important because urban migrants are also vulnerable when it comes to job loss, when it comes to the informal nature of the economy. Yes, so this also becomes an example which you can write. A very important example that you must write is the National Rural Livelihood Mission. And under the National Rural Livelihood Mission, one of the models to alleviate poverty or increase livelihood is by the usage of self-help groups. So a lot of self-help groups related models have helped in the emancipation of women both economically as well as educationally, socially, etc. So self-help group models become very important. Cooperatives become very important. Yes. Farmer producer organizations become very important. What happens in this? You are collectively producing something, you're collectively marketing something, so on and so forth, right? So these kind of examples, and you can also talk about direct cash assistance as well. Yes, that. So these become examples when it comes to livelihood generation programs. Yes. So for credit, you maybe have the Mudra initiative, you have the Stand Up India program, you have the Startup India program, so on and so forth. You also have the Kisan credit card scheme. For direct cash assistance, you have maybe the Kisan Samman Nidhi, where you give maybe about 6,000 rupees in 3 installments. Yes, so cooperatives and FPOs are also a very important example. For example, the huge success of Amul and dairy farmers, SHG related initiatives, for example, the Kudumbashri initiative in Kerala, a huge success, right? Agripreneurship related examples, the development of the food processing sector that will add to value addition to agriculture and also increase the remunerative income for the farmers. Yes, so these kind of initiatives are something that you can talk about. Clear? Now let's come to the second topic. Important topic indeed, but a very brief topic. For example, University Grants Commission has approved the guidelines. That means they have released the standard operating procedure when it comes to flexible duration degree courses, right? What does this mean and in what context should we do this? This is important because in GS2, there is a direct reference to education as a subtopic. Under social sectors, education is a subtopic, and this is associated with higher education institute. In fact, the National Education Policy of 2020 was also asked as one of the PYQs, becomes very, very important. And one of the suggestions of the National Education Policy was that we need to introduce, one of the suggestions was that we need to introduce a national credit framework. What is a national credit framework? How in the Western countries, you are not particularly restricted to only certain types of courses. That means you are taking maybe an engineering related course. You're only taking economic honors. Yes, that means you can't do anything else. So people there are not restricted. They can have varied subjects, very diversified subjects, and they can take credits from those subjects. For example, 20 credits taken from economy, 20 credits taken also from psychology. In fact, behavioral economy as a new academic discipline or a new academic research, behavioral economics was also given the Nobel Prize. Yes, that involves a person to be well versed in economics as well versed in psychology. Yes. So a credit framework will allow a person to not be limited to the traditional structured degree which only focus on one subject. Rather, they can gain credits 20 from economics, 20 from psychology, 20 from maybe environment. Yes, environmental economics also becomes important, and therefore have a multidisciplinary approach when it comes to education. Yes, and on the basis of the credits, if you completed 100 credits or whatever the minimum requirement is, you can be accorded the degree. That means even within a degree, you have chosen where all should be your areas of expertise. I want 50 credits from this area. That is my major. The others are my minors. Yes. So this is very important what the National Education Policy said we should intend to do. Yes. So that is nothing but the National Credit Framework. Yes. That is to give flexibility. It enables the learner. It enables the learner and gives them flexibility to choose credit from diversified subjects. The advantage is that this will lead to multidisciplinary approach when it comes to India, or when it comes to the education sector in India. Similarly, on the same lines, when it comes to enhancing flexibility in colleges, in higher education institutes, what we have done is that UGC has said that we can implement what is called the flexible duration degrees. That means if you are capable, everyone has different capacities, everyone has different capacity or pace of learning. So if you are capable to finish the degree in less than 3 years, you can do so. If you are capable, or if you're not capable of finishing it in 3 years, or there are any unforeseen instances that happen, you can also choose to finish the degree in more than 3 years or more than the required time. Yes, so the duration can be chosen or can be flexible according to the capacity, the pace, as well as the cognitive development of an individual. Yes, so this can be either accelerated degree program, or it can be extended. Accelerated means you will finish it in a shorter time. Extended means you will take maybe more than 3 years or 4 years more than the traditional time allotted. Yes. What does this do? Again, like the credits framework, this allows for flexibility in learning. And this helps in what? Right now, our higher education enrollment ratio is only about 28%. Is only 28%. So even for individuals who sometimes for some reason are not being able to finish their program because of unforeseen instances, they can always take a few credits in one time. They can take maybe a break and they can re-enter the other time. Yes, so there can be multiple entry and exit options. Yes, this is what the NEP had envisioned. So this becomes important, and this will be obviously a later development. Right now, the idea is to at least provide flexibility in the tenure of the degrees that a person chooses to enroll in. Yes. How can this be done? This can be done when higher education institutes will be allowed to form a committee, and they will be allowed to, in a way, evaluate the potential of a person to choose accelerated or extended. Yes. So a higher education institute will have a committee, and they will evaluate your performance and therefore certify if you can go for the accelerated or the extended version. How will they certify this? On the basis of your first semester performance. Yes. So this becomes important in that regard. Any type of degree that will be given in this way will be accepted as a normal degree for any kind of employment or educational purposes, is what UGC had did. Now, what is the advantage of this? The advantage of this is simply that you are ensuring lifelong learning, or you are basically giving a possibility of learning according to the capacity of an individual. Yes, someone who can do it in an earlier time, in a shorter time, should be given the opportunity. Why waste that particular person's time? Someone whose learning abilities are slower can be given further time. At least they are enrolling in any sort of education. Yes, so this becomes important in that time. It also helps to accommodate any unforeseen situations. Yes, so if someone needs to take some more time when it comes to an unforeseen situation, they can do that. Yes, it will also help or be in sync with the criteria of National Credit Framework. That means it will help in diversifying. People can work on the basis of credits to take the degree. The credits related framework that will help in multidisciplinary approach. The example being the behavioral economics that I told you will need a interaction between economics as well as psychology. Yes, another example is it's going to deburden the stress that the youth face when it comes to exams. Yes, deburden the stress as well. The next is it will promote lifelong learning, something that we had envisioned. Lifelong learning means according to your capacity, according to your time, there is no problem. You can access undergraduate courses at any time at your own pace. That means ease of learning, enhance ease of learning. So this becomes very important in changing the higher education environment in the country according to what the national education policy had recommended. Yes, so these are the guidelines that UGC has released. Of course, it will take some time to implement it, but you can use this as any form of reform or suggestions that you write whenever there is a question on higher education in India. Is this clear? So any question on higher education in India, this suggestion of the UGC on flexible duration degrees must come as an option. Yes. Now, let's come to the next topic. Indians need to share contraceptive responsibility. What is this associated with? Now, when it comes to contraception, okay, or the need to control population growth, it takes two. For example, there can be male sterilization or there can be women's sterilization. Why is this topic important? This is important because it is associated with GS1 topic, that means issues relating to women. It is also related to GS2 topic when it comes to maternal health. There has been a question on maternal health earlier as well. A type of reproductive health or reproductive choices. The choice to have a child or to not have a child. That means family planning related methods. Yes, of course, also related to population. So under population topic in GS1, there has been a question about the ways to curb population growth. And under ways to curb population growth, there has been a link related to women's empowerment. That means women should be given the awareness, their capacity should be increased to take decisions when it comes to their reproductive choices, when it comes to their bodily autonomy. Yes. So in this regard, this topic becomes important. Now, what the particular article is saying? The article is saying that in India, we see that there is a disproportionate burden. Disproportionate burden. What do you mean by disproportionate burden? It means that one person or the burden is skewed towards one side. One side as a higher burden as compared to the other. There is no sharing of burden. And what is the disproportionate burden? The disproportionate burden is that women's sterilization, or another word for it is tubectomy, is done way more than male sterilization or vasectomy. Yes. So male sterilization and female sterilization, women related or female sterilization is something that we call as tubectomy. Yes. And male sterilization is something that we call as vasectomy. anything associated with a surgical sterilization method that is followed. Yes. Now this share, when it comes to India, we see that this burden of contraceptives, this burden of stopping the population, this burden of limiting the family size is borne a lot by females in India as compared to males. Yes, and that is a huge, huge burden. Yes, the National Family Health Survey in fact says, the National Family Health Survey, the 5th round, in fact, gives a lot of data on this. And they say that less than 1% of men in India at the present time have done a vasectomy or a surgical sterilization process. Only 0.3% of men in India in the current times have done a surgical sterilization. This was very high in the 1960s because of the National Family Health Program. This was even high later because of forced sterilization, so on and so forth. But this started to dip much later after we started giving a lot of freedom when it comes to family planning. We were not forcefully doing any kind of sterilization. In fact, we were increasing the rights of individuals to choose their family size and family planning methods. We were focusing only on aspects of awareness generation, on maternal health, on child health, of increasing the awareness of two parents with an adequate family size of 2 children, that is the replacement level fertility rate. Yes. So after we started doing this, we saw that voluntarily only 0.3% of men in India have gone through vasectomy or male sterilization. While the figure for women, 37% of women in India have gone through a surgical procedure when it comes to sterilization. Is that not a huge disparity when it comes to burden, bearing the burden for population control? Yes. So this showcases a huge disparity when it comes to who is responsible, for population control or family planning. Yes. So this becomes important in this regard. This is also important because what we are doing in this context when it comes to the health or the usage of contraceptives, we are not achieving the SDG 5th. In fact, we are faltering on the SDG 5 that is relating to gender equality. There is no form of equality that is seen here in this case. A huge disparity that exists in this case. Now let's understand what are the reasons or what are the barriers or the factors behind this trend. Okay, so the reasons or factors behind this trend, the first reason becomes illiteracy. Yes, illiteracy, that means you have a lot of misconceptions about what has to be done. Yes, so illiteracy or lack of education also is one of the factors. That means you are not particularly aware, you are not aware of the family planning methods or contraceptive methods that are available for you. Yes, so awareness is a big problem when it comes to the choice of contraceptives. Yes, choice of contraceptives. The next problem is associated with the traditional or social norms associated with the male ego. Yes, so there is a lot of issues. In fact, when a lot of surveys were done, there were misconceptions associated with the superiority of a male, associated with his continued capacity to have a child. Yes, continued ability to reproduce at maybe a later given time. Yes, so a lot of aspects of this is associated with male ego. That means attaching superiority to the ability to reproduce. Yes, so this is also associated with this. The next problem associated with or a reason for this is a lot of misconceptions. What are the misconceptions? The misconceptions that exist are, for example, if you go through vasectomy, if you go through surgical sterilization, that can have a negative impact maybe on your sexual appetite, maybe on your libido per se. This was written in one of the articles. Yes. So there are a lot of misconceptions that exist also that in a way act as barriers from vasectomy related surgical procedures to happens. So misconceptions related to loss of sexual appetite, yes, or libido, this becomes a example as well. The next problem is associated with family or patriarchal family notions, where the family interferes or the family says that the responsibility or the burden to reproduce is the woman's, and therefore the ability or the need for stopping should also be the woman's. Yes, so family interference can also be a problem or a barrier in that case. Another issue which was also reflected in a lot of surveys was that even when women were asked that why is this the case, women said that maybe because vasectomy can have a huge impact on the person's working capacity. That means they could be unwell or they could take a lot of time to recover, and therefore he is the sole bread earner. How will he go to work? So his work and wage related capacity or working capacity might be hindered because of the recovery time. So they were okay. They said this is our job, this is our responsibility, because of the patriarchal form of mind. Yes. So lack of or maybe the misconceptions relating to the lack of working capacity or work being affected because of the recovery time. Yes. So this also becomes a major problem. What else is a problem? What else is a problem? Another problem is relating to the marital control in a relationship. What do you mean by marital control? Most of the weddings or most of the marriages in India happen in such a way that the women are younger than that of the men. Yes, women are younger and women are married off at much younger age. So a lot of younger women will be in a way forced to take that decision according to what the husband has said, because of two ways of inferiority. One created by patriarchy, the second created by the age. So the obedience factor is much more when it comes to reproductive decisions. In fact, we have seen that women rarely have a lot of decision-making power. Very or lack a huge decision-making power, even when it comes to the number of children she needs to have, the spacing that she wants to have, and when she wants to stop, and also therefore how she wants to stop. So the marital control in a relationship in Indian marriages is inherently towards or skewed towards the male or towards the husband. Yes. So this becomes a case in point or a problem when it comes to the effective implementation of our own decision. Yes. The next aspect is women empowerment or lack of women empowerment. That means very few women have the knowledge, have the awareness of even different form of contraceptives. They do not have the education. Because they do not have the education, they are also not participating in the labor force participation. Yes, this is very low, only 37%. Because they are not in the labor force, they feel it is their duty. Because they only have the domestic responsibilities, they almost see it as their duty to ensure any kind of contraception. Yes, so this becomes important in that form that women who are educated, working, etc. will also take a lot of decisions when it comes to which type of contraceptive to use, which kind of contraceptive to use, as well as who should be using it. right? For example, in fact, medically, tubectomy or male sterilization is considered less invasive than that of women. Women take a lot of recovery time as compared to vasectomies, which do not require a huge recovery time. So an educated or an empowered woman will be able to question her husband on this, that if it is less invasive for you, why not you do it? Yes, or maybe use less invasive options such as maybe IUDs, etc., so on and so forth. Yes, so oral pills, etc. There are multiple contraceptive options, so why not choose from them? Yes, but lack of women empowerment might lead her with no choice whatsoever but to conventionally follow the same norm that has been happening. In fact, a lot of tubectomies happen just after she has delivered maybe the second child or the third child, and after that the family does not intend to have more children. So just along with her delivery or just after her institutional delivery, such kind of procedures are undertaken, sometimes where the woman is not even in the state to make a right informed choice. Yes, so this becomes important in that context as well. Yes, what is the international criteria or the international, when we say the comparison, we've seen in countries like South Korea, where there are lesser forms of gender norms, there is a huge incidence of vasectomy. Yes, so gender sensitization becomes from the schools, from the education days, becomes very, very important. What the government can also do is particularly give cash related incentives as well when it comes to encouraging vasectomy as a mode of sterilization. What the government can also do is to increase other methods and alternatives of sterilization. Yes, why only go for surgical methods? And something that also should come in any of your answers that you're writing, whether it's an answer on population, that how to control population or what are the issues when it comes to controlling population, whether it's a question on women related issues when it comes to the right of contraceptives or surgical sterilizations, you must also question. What should you be questioning? You must also question that is there even a need now to ensure these kind of surgical sterilizations, especially when we are seeing that globally we are witnessing a trend when it comes to aging, when it comes to the dipping in the total fertility rates. Even in India, when the National Family Health Survey, the 5th round, has said that the total fertility rate has dipped to about 2 and will eventually dip below the replacement level fertility rate in the coming years. So in a scenario like this, with a present situation like this, is there even a need? Should we not be promoting pro-population policies instead? At least in those areas, at least in maybe the southern states which are already grappling with a huge decline in TFR, already grappling with an aging population. Yes? So region-specific strategies have to be developed. Why? Because the current reality when it comes to the reduction in TFR. Yes, for example, the National Family Health Survey 5th round had said only about 2. Yes, and Lancet study had predicted that this TFR is going to dip to 1.29 in India by 2050. That is a huge, huge dip. Yes, where globally there is a problem of demographic winter, reduction in TFR and aging in society. When the southern states are being very, very anxious when it comes to low population. Yes, so in situations like this, in current reality, we should now again rethink, and this will come in every question, population question. We must rethink when it comes to population control, or rethink our population control or demographic policies or strategies. Yes, because in fact now in certain regions we should increase or incentivize pro-population strategies. So this becomes important in that point, that you must ensure that your answer is reflective of today's time. It is just not in the same aspect that we need population control, population control, population control. Yes, we need population control to a certain limit because of the fact that India is the most populous country in the world. Yes, but we also see that regions in India differ. So why this should be the case? In fact, other contraceptive options should also be popularized. Cash incentives can also be the case in point to encourage the change in behavior. Sensitization when it comes to gender related policies can also be a case in point. Yes, so that becomes a way forward when it comes to this. Now let's come to the next article per se, very important article, and we'll discuss this at ease. Okay, so this says dignity at the end. What does this mean? That even in the last stages of your life, even when you're approaching death, you should be given the right to a dignified form of death. Yes, a dignified form of death. Why is this topic, or what is the context of this topic? The context of this topic is associated with a law related to assisted dying. Assisted dying, that means assistance is providing for you to die at ease or die with dignity. Yes, when it comes to the UK House of Commons. Yes, so a euthanasia bill, in another way, or right to die with dignity, has been passed in the House of Commons in UK, and that is why this particular topic also becomes important when it comes to GS2, when it comes to for example, the social justice as a problem. Yes, so in GS2, why is this important for us as a syllabus topic? Let's understand that. Okay, it's important because this is related to senior citizens that are part of the vulnerable sections in GS2. This is also part of the whole aspect that we see when it comes to non-communicable diseases. Let's understand the context now. Non-communicable diseases means incidents such as cancer that can severely affect the quality of life that you are experiencing. So the context for here is the UK law associated with assisted dying or assistance in dying. This becomes a case, a bill for assisted dying, yes, or euthanasia per se as a topic. This becomes important in that, right? Euthanasia is nothing but ending the life of an individual in order to mitigate or lower their suffering. In other words, it also means mercy killing. That you have done an advantage, you have actually done good to an individual who was just suffering and who had no scope of recovering, associated with something called as terminal illness. Yes, so that is something called euthanasia. That means ending the life of an individual with an intention of reducing their suffering or mitigating their suffering. That is what we understand. So UK law is associated with this. Why is this important even for India to discuss this in India or globally? Because globally we have also witnessed the problem of aging of society. A topic that UPSC had asked in GS also, called demographic winter. That globally what we see as a trend is the trend of demographic winter. That means the life expectancy of individuals is increasing. The median age in most countries is higher because there is a higher share of the aged population and a shrinking share of the working age population. Yes, associated with a reduction in TFR as well. So more and more individuals in the senior citizen category or 60 years and above will be constituting a huge population, not just in different countries, developed countries, for example, Italy, for example, Japan, for example, South Korea. And these were examples that were given in your prelims related questions in 2024 as well. But even in India, according to the UN Population Fund, we are going to have 1 out of 5 Indians. 1 out of 5 Indians or 20% of Indians in India by 2050 will be over and above the age of 60. That means a trend towards an aging society. Yes. Now what happens in this particular time? Along with an aging society, what we are witnessing, a combination of this is that when we talk about the disease burden, we have a huge increase in the non-communicable diseases that are nothing but the lifestyle diseases. So when a person is living for a longer time, there are higher chances of them contracting these non-communicable diseases at the end of their life spectrum or in the older ages. Why? Because of consumption pattern, because of lifestyle, because of obesity, because of lack of movement, so on and so forth. In fact, even in India, 55% of our disease burden is contributed or attributed to the non-communicable diseases. Examples such as cancers, examples such as heart-related cardiovascular problems, examples such as diabetes, right? So these are diseases associated with an old age as well. Yes, along with this. So now can you see there is an aging population, and that aging population is maybe likely to have these diseases. Some diseases like cancer, in fact, make treatment even more distressing, painful. In fact, cancer treatment is considered more painful than the disease itself. The radiation therapy, the chemotherapy, etc. So it becomes very, very difficult for individuals to go through that pain. And a lot of people do not intend to go through that pain. Yes, and therefore you see a lot of what we see as data, a lot of suicidal tendencies for people who are suffering from these terminal illness related disease. That means they know what the end will be. The probability of the curing that particular cancer would be next to nil, right? So those kind of issues, when they know that this is bound to happen in 6 months, why suffer for 6 more months? That kind of attitude also comes in when it comes to terminal illness. Yes. So what are the contexts in which a right to ending the life or assistance in ending the life is generally sought out? It is when a person is terminally ill. Terminal illness. What does terminal illness mean? Terminal illness simply means that your life is, or the doctors have particularly told you, that you might not live more than 3 months. All the time that you have is maybe 6 more months, and that too with medication, that too with chemo, so on and so forth. Yes. So terminal illness is that there is a terminal that you're going to reach in the near future, regardless of what we do when it comes to medicines. Yes. So that is a issue or a point in case. The second type in which the right to die with dignity is generally justified or is contested is in the vegetative state. Vegetative state. Yes. What is a vegetative state? Vegetative states are states such as state in coma, such as brain dead individual. So a brain dead individual, an individual on maybe a ventilator, etc. That means you're living maybe out of life support, or you are brain dead and therefore you are just lying there as a body. Yes. So that becomes an example of vegetative state. Example being brain dead, or example being on some life support. That the moment the life support is removed, the moment the ventilator is removed, you will not be able to survive on your own. Yes. So this becomes a problem. Another type where this right to die with dignity is generally demanded is where there are illnesses associated with excessive pain. The example that I gave when it comes to cancer related treatment. Yes. So excessive or unbearable pain becomes also a pretext for demanding mercy, for reducing the suffering. Yes, in fact, a lot of morphine related injections are given to cancer patients because of the kind of pain that they are experiencing in their last few 3-6 odd months. Yes. So another important aspect of this is, and therefore we will discuss this, another important aspect of this is, what about the individuals? Yes, why do we need a living will? And here we will also talk about a living will. What is a living will or a living document? A living will or a living document means that when an individual is absolutely in the right frame of mind, when an individual is young, healthy, etc., they can in fact dictate that what should you be doing at what situation if something like this happens to me. Yes. So for example, aged individuals can write their living will and say that if there is a case in point where the doctor said that I need to be taken on the ventilator, you as my children should be denying the same. Yes. If there is a case that I'm declared brain dead, then do not keep me alive as a body for more than 5 days. Yes. So that becomes a living will. Why is this important? This becomes important because these kind of directions in fact remove the responsibility from an individual. Trust me, it is very hard for families to decide when to pull the plug and when not to pull the plug. Yes. So they will constantly be hoping that the person will get better. They will constantly feel that if at all we pull the plug at one day, we will severely be feeling emotions such as guilt. Yes. So, and a lot of trauma attached to it. In fact, a lot of people keep thinking about what could have been done, what should have been done, so on and so forth. In fact, a lot of people also have to bear a lot of financial burden for the same. Yes. So if there is a brain dead person who has to be fed using the food pipes, the food tubes, yes, that kind of hospital beds can cost a lot of money for a person coming from a marginal background. Yes. So how would they make these decisions in these kind of situations? So a living will in a way provides for certain directions for family members, and therefore it can severely reduce the guilt, the trauma, yes, as well as the financial burdens associated with family members. Yes. So this becomes an important point or an important way to go about it. Yes, the decision-making burden for family members severely reduces. Yes, in fact, yes. So in fact, I'll tell you a case and I will show you a case about the Aruna Shonba case. Very important case that you must write whenever it comes to right to die with dignity or euthanasia per se. She was a 25-year-old nurse who was brutally raped and injured in her own hospital. Yes, and because of that incident, because of that injury, she was declared brain dead and paralyzed. And she stayed in that vegetative state for 42 years before she passed away in 2015, a few years ago. Yes, in fact, her friend had also filed a petition claiming that this kind of suffering is something that she should not bear. She's brain dead and she's been lying there and she's been fed with a food pipe for 42 years. What is the meaning of this kind of a life? Allow her to rest in peace. Allow her to go. Yes. And therefore the courts had rejected. Yes. The Supreme Court had rejected a plea to allow her to die, and therefore this also sparked the debate around euthanasia in India. Yes, the Supreme Court said, no, we will not allow for active euthanasia to happen, and therefore we cannot do anything in this regard. Yes, so these kind of cases really question that is when we talk about life, isn't just simple breathing very different from life with dignity? Yes. And when that dignified life is taken away, where a lot of people do not have control over their basic features, their basic functions, yes, when they are in absolute pain, you would have heard a lot of people of allowing them to go, that release me from this pain, allow me to go, and therefore have suicidal tendencies. So in that case, what is the moral imperative? Should the state have certain features like that? Yes. So this becomes an important part of the debate as well. And therefore we come to two aspects of it. That when you talk about death with dignity, yes, or dying with dignity, we can ensure that it's done in two ways. What are the two ways? Or two or three ways. One is associated with assisted dying. Yes, assisted dying. That is associated with euthanasia. That means a drug can be administered. The drug can be administered to you and it can help you in dying without pain. Yes, euthanasia. And therefore another form of that is passive dying or passive euthanasia. This is called active euthanasia. that you are actively helping in someone when it comes to the process of dying. Passive euthanasia is associated also with the living will. That means you remove support. You are allowed to remove that life support. You are allowed to remove that ventilator, and after that removal, that person might not survive. That means you are not just keeping them on artificial life support, but you are allowed to remove that life support. Yes, in order to cease their suffering, in order to stop their suffering. Another important aspect of this is something that we can think about. If we are not thinking about euthanasia, we must think about what is called palliative care. What is palliative care? Palliative care simply means that if you are an aged individual or you are going through certain terminal illness, yes, your quality of life in the last spectrum of your life or the last few days that you have, your quality of life is maintained by giving a lot of care. Yes, in fact, a lot of pain-related mitigation is also given. For example, morphine injections. So individuals who are experiencing a lot of pain can be given morphine injections. They can also be given maybe certain drugs that keep them in a drowsy state where they're actually not experiencing a lot of pain. Yes, so palliative care simply means that type of caregiving. That type of caregiving that is associated with mitigating the suffering attached to any illness. That means pain control related facilities, as well as ensuring the quality of life for aged people or terminally ill people is ensured. It is maintained even in the last days. So quality of life is maintained. So palliative care is not just medical interventions. Rather, it is also medical as well as psychological as well as social interventions taken up by a lot of NGOs, taken up by a lot of old age homes, so on and so forth. So that is an aspect of care where we must focus on. It is not about treating the individual. The individual has already been told that you have 6 months, you have 4 months, etc. It is ensuring that in the last 4 months that the individual has, they are going at peace. Yes, their pain is managed and reduced. They are kept in a stage where they can feel the less amount of pain. Their social surrounding is made in such a way that they do not feel suicidal. Yes, so their mental well-being is taken care of, their physical pain is taken care of, so on and so forth. So this is not related to preventive healthcare, nor it is related to curative healthcare. This is a complete different variant of healthcare called palliative healthcare. So this is something that we must ensure is increasing in India. Why? Because of the trends towards aging population, because of the trends towards non-communicable diseases. Yes, in fact, one of the studies in the papers, one of the studies in the articles had said that 2 out of 3 individuals that had demanded assisted dying, yes, were suffering from cancer. Yes. So this is something that we must ensure. So palliative care can also really come in reducing the demand when it comes to assisted dying. Yes. So this becomes important in that regard. What are the issues that the author is saying? The issues that the author is saying is that this kind of palliative care is only restricted in certain NGOs or certain old age homes in India. Yes. In fact, their capacity has also not been developed. They are not so professionally trained. In fact, they are just managing. So, only 4% of those individuals who actually need palliative care in India are getting access to it. Very, very low access. In fact, a lot of NGOs also have certain issues when it comes to palliative care. What are these issues? When it comes to licenses. For example, they need licenses in order to administer morphine. That is a pain suppressing, reducing drug. Yes. So issues when it comes to licensing, etc. relating to morphine become a issue. Yes. So these are the aspects that the author is talking about. The other aspects also which the author has highlighted is that any kind of assisted living or any kind of euthanasia related practice can also become very, very difficult. Yes. Why can it be very, very difficult? Because it has the tendency of being misused. Yes or no? In fact, the children in spaces or in times where we are moving towards nuclear families, nuclearization of families in India, very few children want to take up the responsibility of continuous care. Yes, very few children want to continuously invest in the care of the elders. Very few children will have the feeling of maybe caring without any benefits in return, right? So they are saying that there are a lot of issues in India where it can be misused. Yes, and where the vulnerable sections can be a victim of the same, where family members, the children itself, can use these assisted dying methods related options in order to maybe get entitlements to maybe inheritance faster, property related claims faster, right? So the misuse is also a major problem, and therefore there have to be excessive safeguards in this regard. Safeguards associated with what? Safeguards associated with how many medical practitioners should specify that these are the number of months that you have a disease that cannot be treated, that cannot be reversed. Yes, so these are very subjective terms. It has to be certified by multiple individuals, and only proper data on the basis of that should be done. So these kind of assisted dying related problems can also be a major problem if they are not executed well. In fact, the UK laws also have huge amount of safeguards that have to be followed, processes, verifications will have to be done to ensure that it is a proper case. In fact, the right of the individual to choose what has to be done to them should also be when they are in the most sound mind per se, where they can make that decision per se, so on and so forth. Yes, so this becomes important. Now, after the safeguards that we have spoken about, let's just talk about the ethical questions that this problem poses. What are the ethical questions that this problem poses? That means that according to ethics or morality, any form of dying or killing someone, okay, whether it is for them, yes, whether it is to relieve their pain, whether it is for a good objective, yes, it is always questionable whether that act is ethically right or not. Yes, so ethical questioning about what does it mean to assist someone to die. Yes, can that be ever ethically right? That becomes the first problem. Yes, can that ever be morally right? Can that ever be ethically right? Life and death, according to the ethical understanding, a lot of religious and moral understanding, is planned, is the domain of nature, is the domain of the Almighty, right? And therefore killing someone, how is that different from a murder? That means it increases the question when it comes to ethics, where you are doing means versus ends. Yes, that means euthanasia or assisted dying, you are justifying on the basis of what? You are trying to justify euthanasia or assisted dying on the basis of the fact that we are in fact doing some good to the individual. We are reducing or mitigating their suffering. Yes. So that is the basis on which you are justifying this particular process. But the means can also be questioned. That means, is killing someone ethical or not? Period. That is the question. Please answer that. Remove the ends when it comes to the decision of ethically right or wrong. So it creates these moral dilemma. It creates these ethical dilemmas that we are thinking. Yes. So means versus ends become a important problem. Then what is an ethically right amount? That when should you ensure that that intervention is done? How is 6 months justified? How are 3 months justified the life? Pain can also be a subjective matter. Some pain threshold for an individual is much higher as compared to a pain threshold of the other. So when to intervene also becomes a problem, also becomes an ethical question. That intervening when it is unbearable is fine, but intervening not till the time it can be for example, experienced and be okay. So that becomes an issue as well, that pain thresholds are different. So how do you understand when to intervene? Yes. Then another ethical problem is allowing them, for example, passive versus active. That means you're not assisting them to die, but you are pulling the plug. You are pulling the plug and you are basically taking them off out of life support. Is that also okay? Or should you have the hope? Should you have the hope to keep them alive till the time you have the means to? Yes. That means what is the intention? Yes. So that is why another ethical question about what is it when it comes to assisted dying, yes, versus passive, that is active versus passive. That if active is not okay, is passive okay? That means allowing them to die, is that okay as compared to helping them to die? Yes. So that also becomes a problem. In fact, this also is a moral dilemma. This also is an ethical dilemma of when to pull the plug, when to remove them of life support. So this also becomes an ethical question in that regard. Yes. So these are the ethical questions that we have understood in that regard. Now let's come to another topic, or just mains enrichment. Now in mains enrichment, I do not need you to do the whole topic. I just need you to use these kind of terms, examples, current context to enrich your mains related static portions. Yes. For instance, I will tell you which kind of a current news article can be used as just a simple example in which kind of your syllabus topic. Yes. For example, brain rot has been described as a new term. It's been added in the, it's been named as the Oxford Word of the Year of 2024. And therefore it becomes important. Yes. For example, any kind of essay. There was an essay in 2024 as well, associated with the problems associated with social media, or overuse of social media leading to the problems of FOMO. Yes. In any kind of questions like this, or what is the impact of social media on the youth of our nation, on children of our nation, on productivity of our nation, so on and so forth. So brain rot in simple terms mean that because of mindless scrolling, because of doom scrolling, yes, you are in a way just given an overload of content. And that content is at the click of a mouse. You're continuously scrolling without a proper intervention or implementation of your brain. Binge watching related episodes. What does this do? It creates a kind of brain fog. It creates a kind of confusion. You've given an overload. You've been given an overload of information and content. And therefore, after this, your cognitive abilities, your focusing abilities, your concentrating abilities, your impulse holding abilities are severely impacted. That is something that we call as brain rot. Yes. So this is a term that I need you to definitely use when you are answering or writing questions in these kind of essays or papers. Brain rot describes the cognitive decline attributed to excessive exposure to mindless social media content. Yes. So this becomes important. Another topic or term written in this is also digital detoxics. Yes. So we see a lot of people doing a digital detox. Why? Because they are feeling the problem when it comes to excessive social media exposure. Yes. So that is something that you must write in your answers. Another example that you also must write in your answers is associated with the topic. And this can be asked in GS4 when it comes to a good work culture. Work culture is directly written in GS4. It can be asked when it comes to the productivity of workers, of the youth, so on and so forth. Basically, in the topic of workplace, or the atmosphere at workplace, or the work culture per se. This was associated with, and this debate was sparked, or this came to light after the incident of the death of a worker, allegedly because of overworking, yes, in Pune. So because of that, something that you must include, yes, is Indians need the right to disconnect. Very, very important. Yes, Indians need the right to disconnect. These kind of policies have been used in a lot of countries. For example, in Spain, the workers have the right to be completely disconnected from their work environment the moment they are stepping out from their office at a desired time. That means if your shift ends at 6 p.m., yes, and you are leaving the office at 6 p.m., beyond that time, you are not required or legally required to be available for work. Maybe on a phone call, maybe on a Google Meet, etc. You can be completely switched off and you will not be liable to be completely disconnected from work. Why is this important? In order to create that separate watertight compartmentalization when it comes to work as well as life. And therefore, this is very important to ensure the work-life balance. Yes. So I need you to write this in these kind of questions. This can be asked in GS paper 1. That is the impact of overworking or the glorification of work culture on the youth. Or this can be asked in GS2 when it comes to work culture as a topic. Clear? You can give the examples of Spain, where you have the right to be disconnected, switch off your devices, etc. On holidays, there is a tradition and a normal understanding that you will not be called for the same. The Australian Parliament also passed the Fair Work legislation, which gave the employees the right to disconnect from work beyond their working hours. Yes, Ireland has also recognized the same right. So these kind of examples, if you have in your answers, this will be much better. Yes. Next, this is the One Nation, One Subscription scheme. Now, what does this mean? One Nation, One Subscription scheme is something that you can write when you're talking about higher education institutes or the research and development culture when it comes to India. This scheme, what it means to do is, for example, you have the Netflix model, right? So before the Netflix model, maybe you had to subscribe to each show. Each show was displayed in different platforms, and maybe you had to give a fee to subscribe and watch each shows. Now with one Netflix subscription, you are being able to access multiple shows which are on the platform. Yes, that is the One Nation, One Subscription model. When it comes to academic journals, when it comes to proper publishing materials, when it comes to e-journals, etc. Yes, so a lot of e-journals, etc. were accessed by different higher education institutes separately. So each higher education institute was taken different subscriptions of these e-journals. Why are these journals important? They are important because a lot of experiments, the results of the experiments, yes, the observations of the experiments are put in these journals. They can be used in a lot of R&D related work, right? So these kind of journals are important to increase the research and development and innovation in higher education institutes. Now what the government has done, they've made one platform, and every higher education institute, at least the central government and the government aided institutes, their faculties as well as students can access these journals on that platform. Yes, by paying a fee only to that platform. Yes, that means the multiplicity of fee or the multiplicity of subscription amount is reduced now. It is taken away. That means this platform is increasing the ease of accessing research in the country, thereby increasing the quality in higher education institutes. So the only thing that you need to read about this is, it is the One Nation, One Subscription scheme. This is something that you will write in higher education institutes. The idea is to provide countrywide access to international scholarly research articles and journals. Yes, to whom? To the students, to the faculty, and the researchers of higher education institutes. Yes, clear? So with this, 1.8 crore students are going to benefit. Yes, and a total of 30 international publishers. There are different publishers of different journals. So almost 30 international publishers have come on this platform in order to share the e-journals. Yes, So this means that you just need one subscription of the platform and you do not have to subscribe to different publishers. This is an initiative. The one body that is ensuring the implementation of this is the Information and Library Network, an autonomous body or autonomous inter-university center of the UGC. So that is all that you need to remember, but just remember the objective, that this is going to help in the quality of research and development in the higher education institutes, one thing that the National Education Policy of 2020 had also wanted. So it's in sync with that particular objective. Another important quality enrichment or mains enrichment point that you will write is that you will say, and this is what you will use in communalism in GS paper 1, and you will say these instances, what instances? Of multiple states ensuring that they are making a law to prohibit conversions. Yes, for example, recently the Rajasthan as a state has in fact introduced a bill to prohibit unlawful conversions of religion. Yes, where you cannot in a way promise marriage for conversion. Yes, you cannot use fraud in order to convert someone. You cannot forcibly convert someone, etc. Yes, so if someone marries with the intention of converting a person's religion against the law, the family court can declare the marriage to be invalid. And this crime of forcible conversion is also non-bailable according to the new law that has been made in Rajasthan. Example of this, and therefore you will just use this, that these instances of anti-conversion laws in multiple states, the recent example being Rajasthan. This reflects what? This reflects the insecurities. This reflects the fear, and this reflects the reality that the society is still divided along religious lines. Yes or no? That even today, marriage between individuals sometimes is seen with the suspicion that it is mainly with the motive of religious conversion. The whole example of the love jihad controversy. Yes, so that is something that you can also talk about, that these kind of incidents can also, or they showcase that communalism in the society is still rampant. Or you can say these kind of instances also sometimes showcase why interreligious marriages are a rarity in India. Yes or no? This was in fact asked in GS paper 1 this year itself, that intercaste marriages are a trend nowadays between people of the same economic strata, while interreligious marriages are still a rarity. So these kind of laws also deter communities from in fact marrying in an interreligious manner. Yes, or marrying out of their religion per se. So that is also something that you can say, no good and bad comment on it, but just saying that these kind of laws, the fact that they are in place, the fact that they are being introduced, reflects that a lot of religious tensions and communal tensions still exist in our country today. An example of communalism. Yes or no? Understood? Now, this also becomes an example of communalism. That means a lot of contestation has happened when it comes to places of worship. The recent example is the Ajmer Dargah. So even a lot of pleas have been found. A civil suit has been filed by certain sections claiming that even under or before the Ajmer Dargah was set up, there was a Shiv temple that was under that particular layer. Yes, and therefore the whole contest around similar places. What are the other similar places? Gyanvapi, the Sambhal violence, Ajmer Sharif, etc. Yes, and which is why the Supreme Court had said that right now any lower court or subordinate court must not pass any orders when it comes to surveys, must not pass any orders when it comes to entertaining or accepting any of these pleas till the time that we do not decide on the same. Yes, so this is what the courts had done, and that is also an example of growing feeling of communalism in India. Yes, that means a lot of these places of worship, and you can give the example. I just need you to give the example in communalism answer. So Gyanvapi becomes the same, the Sambhal violence becomes the same. Now also contestation on Ajmer Dargah also becomes the same. Yes, so these kind of conflicts are an example of the communal tension. Conflicts over the Places of Worship Act of 1991. Is this clear? Just as example is something that you need to know, nothing more. Yes, clear. Now next, this is the last example that you can give. All women's team, a good example. Why? When it comes to women related issues, if a question is about women related issues and you need to give certain suggestions, that women are prone to eve teasing in a lot of public areas. In fact, a lot of public places are also not safe for her. Yes, in fact, a lot of dim lit places are also not safe. A lot of following, a lot of eve teasing, etc. associated with women, and therefore this can be a good example of this. That means you increase the presence of women in the forces, for example, the police forces, etc. This will also help in ensuring that women are securing women's related issues. This will also bring in sensitization in the police forces or in the criminal justice administration. Yes, it might be easier for women to go and explain their issue or their case to another female individual. Yes, so one of the new Rajasthan's initiative is the Kalika patrolling units. Okay, all women teams which will be ensuring that they are controlling or patrolling areas such as public places, colleges, malls, etc. in order to avoid instances of eve teasing and to ensure safety of women in public places. Right? So that is all that you need to know. Please understand, do not waste a lot of your time when it comes to these kind of topics. Just use it as an example. Anyway, a lot of controversial topics are not asked in UPSC directly, so you do not have to worry. Is this clear? Last but not the least, I need you to see this, because you can, if at all you need the PDF access for this session, this is the Telegram channel that you can go to, and I'll be uploading the PDF on this Telegram channel itself. If at all there are any doubts, anything that you need to discuss when it comes to this session that we have conducted, you can also ask me on this Telegram channel, since I've enabled the comment section, so you can do that. Yes. So with this, we are done for today. Allow me to leave. Thank you so much for watching. Please make sure that you pour in your love in the form of likes. Comment on the video. I love to hear from you. Please share the video and do not forget to subscribe on the subscribe button, because we'll be coming up with a lot more content in the next month. All right. Thank you so much, everyone. Good night. Take care. Bye-bye.